Before continuing to work with the simulator, we have to learn some basic programming structures that are going to be mainly used in the main loop. Let's start with the if control structure, which looks like this. The statement is only executed if the condition is true. We can expand the structure like this. If the condition is false, only statement 2 gets executed. But if the condition is true, only statement 1 gets executed. For example, let's say we have a variable x, and we want to know when this variable is either positive or negative. For this case, we will use the following code. If x is greater than 0, this portion of the code is executed. Otherwise, this one is executed. More questions can be asked in the same structure as well. For instance, we might like to know if x is equal to 0. Then the code would be, the code is divided into 3 questions. If x is equal to 0, if it is greater than 0, and if it is less than 0. Note that only one answer may be true, meaning that x can only be either positive, negative, or 0. In other words, the if and else conditions must be mutually exclusive. In a similar way to the main loop, there are other 2 basic structures, for and while. They are like the main loop in the sense that the code between the brackets is executed repeatedly. These 2 structures are used in different cases. We typically use the for loop when we know the number of iterations in advance, and it does not change as long as the for loop is executed. On the other hand, we use a while loop when we do not know the number of iterations in advance, and it can change during the execution of the loop. In the case of the for structure, we have a variable I that will start with a value equal to a, executing the code once. Then I is automatically incremented in a defined way, executing the code for each increment until the termination condition is met. For example, let's try the following case, in which I starts with a value of 1, it is incremented in steps of 1 until I equals 3. The code will be executed a total of 3 times for I equals 1, I equals 2, and I equals 3. Note that the code is not repeated infinitely as in the main loop. In the while structure, there is a condition at the beginning. While the condition is true, the code is executed. In this case, the code is executed while x is less or equal to b. In contrast with the for structure, the value of x is updated within the code. For instance, while x is less than or equal to 3 is true, the code will be executed line by line. The value of x will be incremented by 1 in each iteration, and this will continue to happen until the condition x is less than or equal to 3 is false. Let's do another example. How to build the code that calculates the factorial of x. The formula to calculate it looks like this, where we assign the value of the factorial of x to a variable y. Using what we know so far, there are 2 ways of implementing this math operation. One of them is using the for structure. The variable y takes x's value. I starts also taking x's value, and then after each iteration, its value will be decreased in steps of -1 until it reaches I equals to 2. So let's do the first iteration. The first value of y is equal to x, and I does the same thing. Then the second value of y is y2 equal to x times x minus 1. In the next iteration, I is equal to x minus 1, and y3 is equal to y2 times I minus 1. Replacing the value of y2, it is equal to x times x minus 1 and times x minus 2. If x is equal to 3, the third iteration of y, y3, is equal to 6, which is equal to the factorial of 3. Using the while structure, the variable y takes x's value. If x is greater or equal to 2, then y2 is equal to y1 times x minus 1, and y1 is equal to x. In the next iteration, y3 is equal to y2 times x minus 2, which is equal to x times x minus 1 and x minus 2. If x is equal to 3, then the factorial of 3 is equal to 6. There are many of these structures, and we can find an explanation for all of them on the Arduino website. They are under the Documentation and Reference tabs, and we will learn many of them during these tutorials. However, if you feel curious, just start reading.